Hi, my name is Jason Howard, and I'm a current senior finance major here at UGA. I plan to graduate this year in the spring of 2015 and move to Charlotte, North Carolina following graduation. I'm a very outgoing and people person, and this study abroad was one of the best experiences of my life, and I can't wait to tell you about it. This study abroad over the 3 weeks of Christmas break, we spent traveling Australia, experiencing the different places and the cultures. We first started in Sydney, where we spent our first 3 days sightseeing and learning about the native cultures of the Aboriginal people. We then traveled up north to Noosa Heads for 4 days, where we learned about the local community, local environments, and current issues surrounding Noosa today. Following that, we flew to Lady Elliot Island and Great Barrier Reef for 3 more days, where we spent our time focusing on the wildlife and ecosystems of the reef and all the issues and threats facing them today. We spent our time snorkeling, diving, and reef walking as we discussed the flora and fauna species native to the reef and all about their environment and the threats. Following LEI, we then traveled to Carnarvon Gorge in the outback for 4 days, where it was extremely hot and very dry. However, also we discussed the native Aboriginal culture and the outback ecosystems from our tour guide Simon. Finally, we ended our trip in Brisbane for the last 2 days. We got to wrap up our program with a local museum tour and reminisce with the group on all the fun experiences we've had over the last few weeks. However, sightseeing was not the real reason we were here. The main reason for me was to learn more about how to help and promote a sustainable environment in the future for Australia's ecosystems as well as ecosystems around the world. I came on this trip to learn how I, as an individual, can impact the environment and the world around me with small, everyday choices. I never knew before I came on this trip how much impact every person can truly have on the animals and the wildlife of surrounding ecosystems. This trip truly opened my eyes to the threats and dangers facing our world today and what will happen if we don't act on them quickly and swiftly. As I mentioned, the primary issue we were discussing was sustainability and how we individually affect our surrounding environment. We first began to learn about Australia's environment when we were introduced to and learned about the Aboriginal people and their rich history of over 60,000 years native to Australia. We learned a lot from the lectures about the environment. However, we learned most from the instructional walk we took with Margaret, a local Aboriginal tour guide who taught us about the native culture. We continue to learn about sustainability as we visited Noosa and Lady Elliot Island, learned about Noosa's spit issues of overdevelopment and the Great Barrier Reef issues of rising threats of coral bleaching and destruction. Finally, this issue came full circle in Carnarvon Gorge as we learned more about the Aboriginal history and how their lives interacted with nature versus how ours do today. These issues are already in critical condition and need immediate attention if we are to make any effort to properly assess and handle these issues. The most concerning of time-threatening is the destruction and bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef. This is caused due to primarily rising water temperatures and water pollution, both of which play a role from human interaction. If the coral continues to be bleached, numerous animals, homes, and environments will die off and eventually become extinct. If we can educate and inform people on the little changes in their lives that they can make to help the environment, we could have a chance at slowing down and stopping some of the harmful environmental effects, as well as getting fishermen and farmers to understand the consequences of overfishing and sediment runoff to the coral. I believe the best thing we can do is to educate and inform these people who otherwise don't have access to or don't look for the answers on how to reduce their personal carbon footprint. The biggest thing I learned from this trip was the impact that I and all of the individuals can have on the surrounding environment, as well as the true reasons for some of the environmental dangers happening across the globe. This trip truly did open my eyes. As I said, prior to this trip, I did not believe that human impact and rising ocean temperatures were really a true fact. However, this trip did change my view as I saw firsthand these effects in LEI and in Noosa. The one thing I'm most proud to say is that I learned from this trip would be that no matter the choice we make as humans, big or small, we affect our environment and ecosystems every day, and if we don't stop to think outside ourselves, there will be no one left but us.